All right, Julie, we'll clue you in when we want you to start sharing your screen, okay? I'm the Master Gardener Coordinator for Lincoln County in Oregon. As I know, a lot of you guys aren't from Oregon, so welcome. So Lincoln County is primarily located within the traditional homelands of the Tillamook and Siletz. And following the Treaty of 1855, the tribes were forcibly removed to reservations, and today the living descendants are part of the Confederated Tribes of Siletz. So thank you so much for coming today to our Growing Oregon Gardeners Level series. This is produced by the OSU Extension Master Gardener program and has been organized by a group of coordinators, OSU faculty, and staff from across the state. So we are very happy to have you all here. For those of you who don't know, the OSU Extension Master Gardener program educates Oregonians about the art and science of growing and caring for plants. We are in about 27 counties across the state. We train thousands of Master Gardener volunteers, and our volunteers are educators, neighbors, and on-the-ground researchers who serve their community with solid training in science-based, sustainable gardening and a love of lifelong learning. So if you are a Master Gardener, thank you for dedicating your time and knowledge. And if you are not one, but are interested in becoming one, Oregon will be hosting training for new volunteers in 2022. So you can learn more about the program and other workshops in this series on our website, which I'll post in the chat. And today's workshop is also being recorded and will be accessible to view along with the slides and also additional resources on the website. So just some general housekeeping about how we're going to operate the webinar. Everyone is muted, or participants are muted. So if you could please use the Q&A for your questions. It's located at the bottom of your screen. We have a new feature that's called an upvote. So you can, if your question is the same as somebody else's, you can click this up button and it will move it up so that the facilitators can then address that easier. And we'll try to save about 10 minutes at the end of this presentation for common questions, but realizing that we have over 800 people on here, we probably won't get to all of them, but we'll have resources for you at the end. Chat will be disabled during the webinar, and at the end of this presentation, we'll post an evaluation in the chat box for the webinar. So you can tell us how we did today. So for the main event today, our talk is Dazzling Dahlias with Julie Moore, and a little bit about Julie. So Julie owns her own dahlia business, Julie's Dahlias, and she's been growing dahlias for over 7 years. Julie is a member and judge of the Portland Dahlia Society and also helps judge dahlia shows in the Pacific Northwest. Julie is a Master Gardener volunteer, and prior to growing dahlias, she grew and showed roses. And unfortunately, last year, her home got caught in the middle of the Echo Mountain complex wildfire, and they lost everything. And so she lost her home, her greenhouses, and her shop, and unfortunately over 1,000 dahlias. However, they were lucky to have one garden located outside the county that weathered very well. So she still has some tubers to operate her business, and is just the picture of resiliency. So Julie, we are so happy to have you. If you wouldn't mind sharing your screen, we will let you take it away. So give us a moment and Julie will pop up her presentation here.
Hi, everybody. I'm Julie, and that was Miss Pammy, who I adore very much. She's great. She's helped me out so much with this. I was supposed to have done this talk actually the day after our fire, and so we had to put it off. And it was really difficult to put it off, but now I'm here, and I'm here with, oh my goodness, almost 1,000 people, which was a lot more than we ever anticipated. I have taken a whole bunch of notes and things that I think are really interesting and really important regarding growing dahlias. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to talk about different things. I have a slideshow that has some really interesting, I think is interesting, information about dahlias. And then I also talk about what to do and how to care for them. and how to get them going for this summer, and what to do in watering and fertilizing and the whole bit. So I'm gonna go ahead and go to the next slide. Maybe. Oops, sorry guys. I thought I was going to. Oh, there we go. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the history of dahlias. They were first discovered in Mexico in 1582. At that time, there were only 3 colors, and they were red, pink, and purple. They were more like our singles. They were flat with just a few petals. At the time, they would use, the natives would use them as dried, and they would dry them and use the herbs for urinary tract infections. Kind of like what we use our foxglove flowers for now for for heart conditions. Over the centuries, they've evolved into 29 different size classifications and 29 different forms. They also are in every color imaginable except for blue, black, and green. And I'm sure that with the hybridization worldwide going on right now, that we have some big growers out there who would eventually come up with those colors also. There we go. This is a picture of what an ideal tuber would look like. We actually have so many different kinds of tubers. Tubers come in every size, shape, and you'd be surprised how many different things I've seen with these tubers. A healthy tuber should be firm and plump. It shouldn't be shriveled or spongy. Sometimes they do get a little bit of shriveling if they get a little bit dried out, but it doesn't mean that they're not, they still won't be an adequate dahlia, or they surely could be. They will look and feel like a raw sweet potato. They come in a variety of sizes and shapes, like I said, but the size, shape, or color will not tell you what the flower itself will end up looking like. A small tuber can produce a huge flower. I have ketchup and mustard. I don't know if anybody's familiar with that. Beautiful dahlia. And most of my tubers are literally less than an inch long, and they make a 4.5, 5 foot plant. It's amazing. These are some other different types of tubers that you might come across that will grow into beautiful and healthy plants also. This here is a slide showing you where the eyes of the dahlias are. You can see the tubers with the eyes attached to the stalk. This is the old stalk. This is an old tuber, probably the mother tuber. The eyes are connected. This helps to see where they're at. So if you were to divide this clump of tubers, you'd see where the tuber eyes are attached to the neck of the tuber. And you want to get one eye tuber. So if you divide this, you're going to want to divide it with one eye attached to it. And this would be the start of your dahlia plant. The eyes develop along the crown of the tuber. And the crown is the bulging ridge going around the thin portion of the tuber called the neck. So this would be the neck with the tuber attached to the old stalk. Initially, the eye will just be a bump on the crown, and then it will develop into a sprout. If the sprout gets broken off before the tuber is planted, don't worry, the tuber will more than likely create another sprout, but it's still better to be careful and protect your eyes with no matter what. I mean, it's very important. And dahlia growers may also want to start their dahlias indoors to get them a head start before planting them outside, and also increase the stock by taking cuttings. And so you'll hear people talk about taking cuttings off of their tubers. And that means that they want to take one tuber, get the eyes to grow tall, and then take that cutting off and start another plant. It's very, very fun to do, I can tell you. And this is one way that you can start your dahlias indoors. You can take your tuber that you receive from however you purchase them. From me, I get mine from my society primarily. And you get them started in soil. And then you can get them going faster, so you can get them planted in outdoors faster. Well, not necessarily faster, but there'll be a lot stronger plant and a taller plant, and it will get going faster instead of having to try to wait with putting a tuber directly into the ground. And another reason to start your tubers indoors is just so you can have blooms faster. sometimes if you live in an area where it's cold longer and you don't have, you have frost a lot farther into the spring, you won't be able to get the tubers in. So and you need to have a certain amount of time before they're going to be able to bloom. So if you can get them started indoors, you'll have that much of a jump start on getting them planted and putting them out in your yard. And it's a wonderful time that way. And then maybe you have blooms at the end of July instead of having to wait until September, which is great. You may also plant your tubers, or you're planting your tubers. You can plant your tubers. Well, let's go back to I'm sorry, I'm going all over the place. If you're going to start your tubers indoors, you can start them in 4-inch pots, or you can get them in larger pots depending on how much space you have. The tubers themselves would appreciate having a larger space. They'll be able to get more rooting system going before you plant them in the ground. If you plant your dahlia tubers indoors, whether in your home or like on a shelf like this with lights, or in your garage or in your basement, or wherever you have an adequate space to do that in, if you get them started like the first week of April, you'll have a nice green growth growing by the time you are able to plant them in May. It'll be wonderful to actually be able to plant that instead of planting a tuber. So while a greenhouse is ideal, you can plant them anywhere you want, really. You can buy the big shelves at the big box stores. You can get the lights like I do from Amazon. You can get them off of any place, really. And then just make sure that when you're putting the lights down, you put them about 6 inches, not this is a lot farther up than you'd want it, but 6 inches above the growth, and you'll give them plenty of, that way they're not stretching their necks trying to get to the light. You want to make sure they have plenty of light. And you also want to use a high quality soilless potting blend. If you're going to just put them in to get them started, and then later you can put them outside into your earth or into a potting box of some kind of planter. You want to water them carefully. You don't want to overwater them, and let them get dry between watering. And then when it comes to actually planting your plants outside, it depends on where you live and what your climate is. But it's usually anywhere between late April and the end of May. You want to make sure that your ground temperature is about 60 degrees and no frost. And we've been having a crazy frost this year, so I'm really keeping track of mine, and they're not going to be going in for a while. If you know when you plant your tomatoes, that's the perfect time to plant your dahlias. They both appreciate the same type temperature in the soil. If you don't know exactly when to plant tomatoes or dahlias, definitely get a hold of your extension, your Master Gardener extension, or Dahlia Society. We will help you and figure out the best place of when to plant them where you live. And then when you get ready to plant them out, you want to choose an area that you will get at least 6 hours of sunlight. Morning sunlight with afternoon shade is ideal. Your soil should drain well so that each watering is adequate to allow the plant to absorb enough moisture and it doesn't leave the soil wet and boggy and muddy. Dahlias definitely don't like wet feet at all. And then, so if your dahlias are going to be more than 36 inches, 3 feet, most dahlias are. You have your smaller ones that aren't, and those are the ones that are ideal for your pots. But if they're going to be more than 36 inches, then you want to use staking. They really do get very big and very heavy, and they need to have protection, especially if you have a lot of wind or a lot of rain, that kind of thing going on. So now if my dahlia is going to be more than 36 inches, I pound, what I would do is I would take a dahlia stake and I would pound it into the ground right where I'm going to put my tuber at. So if I know that I'm going to have a large dahlia, and if you don't know how tall your plant is going to be, your best resource is going to be the person that you bought the dahlia from. they should know how strong, how tall, how big your dahlia is going to be, and whether or not you're going to need a stake to keep it going. So that if you, there's different types of ways of staking them. And like I have on here, it's individually staking. And also what I do is I corral them, because I have long lines of dahlias that I put together. So I corral them together using T-posts and twine or wires. Here's some other types of ways. Once your garden is going, you don't notice that you have the corralling types of T-posts and everything in there. The plants really cover it up well. It's nice. You could also use tomato cages. If you have only a few dahlias and you want to use, make sure that they're well protected, those work too. Let's see. So once I've determined what type of stakes I'm going to use to put my dahlias in, then I'm sorry, I'm going to get myself out of my way here. So I'm going to dig a hole in where I'm just decided the perfect place for my dahlias to be. I'm going to dig a hole 4 to 6 inches deep, and then I'm going to put the stake in first, and then right next to where the stake is where I'm going to dig my hole. And then I usually would add a bone meal, but it depends on how many critters you have going around, getting into things, digging stuff up, because you definitely don't want them digging up your tubers. So I've been using these alfalfa pellets that I get. They're rabbit alfalfa pellets that I get from the feed store. I can buy a 40-pound bag of it. It's really good in nitrogen. And so I take a half a cup of that and I put it in the hole. And then I put about 1 inch of soil over top of that so that my tuber is not going to get burned by anything. I don't know if with the alfalfa pellets, if they necessarily would, but I don't want to take that chance. So I always put soil over top of the fertilizer, whatever type I use, whether I could use a 10-10-10, Epsom salts, or so many different ways of doing it, depending on also your earth and where you live and what's going on in your garden. Having a Master Gardener, the extension service, actually check what your soil is a really great way to start the season. That way you know what you have too much of or you don't have enough of, and then you can adapt your fertilizing as a whole for all of your garden, not just the dahlias, but for everything. And where I live, because it rains a lot here, so a lot of the nitrogen is absorbed from it's taken out of my soil. So I use Epsom salts around my my plants as I'm putting them in. And then, but you definitely want to fertilize to balance your soil. I mix it all in. I put the dahlia tuber laying horizontally in my hole with the eye next to where the stake is. So that way when the eye starts to grow up and I start having the greenery coming, like this guy, start having the greenery coming up, then I can, well, once it gets about this tall, I can start tying them off along the stake. And I don't have to worry about hurting the tuber, but coming in later and trying to put in a stake, because that sometimes can be very detrimental. You don't want to do that. So then I cover it up with soil and I pat it down. And I usually plant my tubers, my dahlias, 18 to 24 inches apart. And I plant them in rows that are 2 to 3 feet apart. I then water it and lightly to get them started. If I'm planting in an actual plant and I'm putting this into the ground, this is already a dahlia. I mean, it's already growing. If I put this into the ground, then it's a lot easier because you already know where everything is. You can tell where the eyes are. The eyes are already coming up. It's very simple to plant that as opposed to planting a tuber that's really bare and you're not sure exactly what's coming up on it. So with me, I have a lot of space, so I have a lot of dahlias. But if you really love dahlias and you don't have a lot of space, or if you just want to have dahlias in different parts of your property, it's wonderful to have different types of dahlias. There's so many kinds, so many sizes. You can put them in pots, you can put them in raised beds, you can put them in just about anything, depending on the type of dahlia you're planting. So if you have, if you want to have like a really nice pot of dahlias, your best bet would be to have something that's more like the micros, or more of the single type, something that's a smaller dahlia, the border type dahlias. They do great in pots. But if you want to have the bigger dahlias, you could definitely have those in a raised bed. And it's the same thing. You just need to make sure that you have adequate water, and you're going to fertilize them a little bit differently, a little bit more than you would if they were in the ground.
Hey, Julie, just a note to advance your slides if you're, you know, needing to do that.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Pammy. Okay, so I think I need to fertilize. Okay, then, so this is pinching or topping. So let's go, okay, I'll talk about the staking and tying up your dahlias. So once your dahlias are growing, and you have a nice stake there, and your dahlia green's coming up, you can be tying it up as it's growing up. And once it gets to be about 12 to 16 inches tall, then your next thing to do would be to pinch it or top it. You don't have to. This is something that's totally it's up to you. But what it does is it allows the bush to get wider and bigger and stronger, as opposed to it just keep going straight up. So you'll just use your fingers or snippers, and you're going to just cut that central the central part out, pinch the sprout that's in between the leaves, the top pair of leaves, and it's going to stimulate the other leaf nodes to head off. So your growth is going to be bigger. And it's sometimes it's fun to see how well it will do compared. I like to practice with it. So what I'll do is I'll take two plants that are exactly the same, and I'll pinch one and not the other, just to see how well in the summer they grow. You know, to see if one gets whiter, one gets better flowers. It just makes it, I don't know, it's better for the plant, I think, in the long run, from as far as my perspective has been. And it just gives you a bushier plant as opposed to a tall, more wintry plant. And here's some of the pinching instructions. If you're able to see this, if you have double A's and singles, this is really important for them. If you want to, I know I received a question earlier regarding how to get really big dahlias. This is a really good way to get really big dahlias. One of the, if you pinch it, you get it going, you have it set up, you're having a lot bushier plant. And then once the stems are coming out, then you can just bud them into certain levels to get a bigger flower. This is, and I don't have a lot of information on it because I don't really work with super big dahlias, but I do know that the more you disbud down certain levels, you're going to be able to get one single flower out, and it's going to be bigger. I did get a question about that earlier, so that was why I wanted to bring that up. And now watering. Watering is the best part. I'm sorry, I love it. I love watering. So there's different ways, and because, okay, for one thing, we know that dahlias are very large plants and they require a lot of water. They have a lot of flowers and their green is just amazing. So, and if you ideally want to keep your soil evenly moist, but never soggy, and you don't want it to completely dry out either. Your soil and climate conditions will impact your ability to do this. So it depends on where you live, how hot it is in the summer. If your soil is sandy, expect to water more often. And if you have clay soil, really do your best to work the clay and add more nutrients and stuff to it, add more compost to it so that you can improve your drainage, and then water really carefully. If you expect to have dry conditions, mulch to preserve the soil moisture. Don't let the mulch touch the plant stalk because you just don't know what's in it, but do not overwater. Dahlias don't like wet feet. They want to be able to get dried out. This is especially important when the tuber is planted, but the plant is not up yet. So if you plant a tuber, you don't want to overwater it because it will rot, and that's the last thing in the world you want to do. So you want to really wait until the green starts to emerge from the soil before you start watering. If you live in a place that it's really warm in the summer, then you want to really take care of your dahlias, because if it's over 95 and your soil is just scorching, and it's burning the tubers. So you want to have a really good system, whether it's soaker hoses, drip tape, whatever your system is, but to keep the soil as cool as possible. And definitely mulching will cool down the temperature on the soil. And it'll help keep the tubers from just boiling. Really, it's like a potato. So if your plants are not blooming in the summertime, really look at the temperature. And if it's too hot, then start watering the base of the plant more often to cool down the earth around it. And then also read your plant. You know, every plant will tell you what it needs. It'll tell you if it needs more sun, if it needs more water or fertilizer. Just really pay attention to what your plant is telling you. If they're droopy or and you know that they're being stressed, and then give them some good water. See if that will help to calm them down, and it surely might. And make sure that when you're watering them, you water them deeply, because they do require a lot of water. And if it's really hot out, they're going to just take all that water as fast as you can, and then they're not going to have it for later. So really water them in deeply. And make sure that if you can, kind of move around the earth that's around the plant. Don't hurt the plant, but move the earth around a little bit. So when you are watering it in, it's getting air and water into the roots. Just loosening the soil can make a lot of difference, especially in the middle of the summer, because it could be hard, hot, compact. I try to water only near the roots, but if you must water your foliage, just do it early in the day to help keep, especially if you live in a place like I do, where it's really high humidity, I end up with mildew on my leaves and things, and that's the last thing in the world I want. So just really water early in the day if you need to water your foliage, if you have to do overhead watering, if that's the kind of watering you have to do, and that's, if they're happy, they just want water. Sprinklers are inexpensive, but they provide uneven watering, and they may damage plants because of the pressure that's being hit against them. So, and then of course, you also waste a lot of water due to evaporation, and the water's being sprayed everywhere that not necessarily directly towards the plants that you're trying to water. Soaker and drip hoses are great for old standbys, but at the same time, when you are watering with a soaker hose, you're watering at the very beginning really great, but then towards the end of the hose, it's not getting near the amount of water that the rest of it's getting. So some of the plants down at the end might end up not getting the water you think they're getting, because it's all being given to the ones at the beginning. The pressure diminishes, so as gets farther down the hose. Drip lines, they're great, and they put the water where you want it to be, and they're not that hard to put together. They do take some time, but once you get them set up, they work really, really well. You can have emitters that will put the water exactly in the spot you want it to be in. And let's see what the next one. There's some more different drip line systems. This is a wonderful way that you can just turn on your hose, depending on where you want the water to go, which line you want it to go in. You can use these for pots. You can put the little emitters into the pots, and then you can just turn on one nozzle and do one whole area. It's beautiful, beautiful situation. Plus, it dramatically improves the efficiency of the soaker hoses. So, that's always a good thing. Drip tape is another one that you can lay out, and it will emit water directly into the spots that you want them to be. They put the water where you want it, and it's designed to disperse the water evenly and throughout the length of the tape, which is awesome. So the quality of watering systems varies considerably. Do your homework. It's easy to get customer opinions and find out what other people are thinking about if you just research things on the internet, even that works out great. Talk to people in your master gardeners or your different Dahlia societies, garden clubs, find out what they're using, see what they like, what they don't like, try it. Best thing. Okay. And now back to my fertilizing again. I just wanted to go over a little bit more with the fertilizing. It's very important, but everyone has different soil and different fertilizing needs. So it's always a great practice to have your soil tested and see what you might need and to balance your soil better. You can just go ahead and contact your Master Gardener Extension office to find out how to get your soil tested. There's a lot of different organizations and companies out there that will test your soil for you and give you a whole run out. So that way you'll know where you stand in the beginning of the season. I usually apply a 10-10-10, or I do the rabbit alfalfa pellets. And I feed my plants when I first plant them in the ground, and then I plant them, and then I fertilize them on the first of the month, every month after that until August. August is my last month that I fertilize, and then before fall. I also apply a foliar fertilizer of liquid seaweed or more bloom. I use both back and forth. I'm quite happy with either one of them, especially in the month of August, because I have show season starting in, well, usually the end of August in September. And this way I'm able to get my leaves. This is the best way to get your most beautiful plants. It gives them the extra boost that they need of nitrogen or just phosphorus, what they need to get going, and the leaves, just beautiful leaves. So but I believe, so what I do is I don't do it when it's really hot in the morning or hot in the daytime. I wait until I do it first thing in the morning when it's really cool, or I wait until it's like a cloudy day and I spray the leaves. And I don't want to do it when it's warm because it will burn them. And I know it's definitely done that before. So I have to be very careful on how I use foliar spray on the leaves themselves. But it's really good. The plant will just uptake all of it. And if it's in the middle of August and it's been really hot and just not happy times for the dahlias, I give them this little extra spurt, and oh, the next couple days, they're just on fire. It's wonderful. I also use Epsom salts. I take a tablespoon and I mix it in with a gallon sprayer, and I do that a couple times during the summer. And that helps with the nitrogen uptake also in the dahlias. This is disbudding. This is when we have the beautiful plants growing and they're doing wonderful. So if you take the two outer buds, you'll see, if you're looking at you'll see the two outer buds, and you'll see the middle one. That's your growing bud, your side buds. You want to take your side buds off, and then you'll have a long stem with a beautiful dahlia. It does take away some of the flowers that you would have, but it's worth it, I think, in the end, because it helps to open up the dahlia plant. It gives it more air, it gives it more substance, and it's going to put more energy into the flowers that you want to be blooming. And then you can cut these gorgeous stems, and you can take them and you can put them in the house, put them in a vase. I take them for show. Then I don't have these little the little side buds just sitting there. But then again, sometimes I just like them to go free and let them do whatever they want also. So, you know, it's up to you. But if you remove the two outer buds from the three, they will develop at the end of each branch. You'll end up with longer stems for vases. Okay, and then deadheading. Deadheading is very important if you want to keep your dahlias growing and keep them moving in the right direction. You want to have beautiful blooms going all the time. So to deadhead, you need to pay attention to what is actually a bud and what is actually the end of the life cycle of the dahlia head. Sometimes with dahlias, it's not easy to tell. And I have cut many, many, many buds off thinking that I was deadheading, and I wasn't. So I've learned. It took me a while, but I've learned. So you want to cut off the cone-shaped dahlia head. and keep the new spherical one, the rounder one. And you can see that on both of these. There's two different pictures here that show you the longer cone-shaped one. That's the head that's bent that you want to take off. So you want to cut those off. You want to deadhead those, and you want to leave the other ones on. Sometimes plants are so full of dahlias, it's very difficult to tell. Like this little mignon single, baby yellow. Oh my goodness, that thing's always full of blooms. And it's hard to tell what is what, but you can figure it out. It works out really well. And it just keeps the plants growing. And so I think that we are, do you have any more, do you want to talk about questions?
Yeah, so if you want to pause real quick for questions, that would be great. I'm gonna go in and see what we have open here.
I wanted to give one little heads up. These pictures that I have on here were created by my dad. He is a computer artist and he does dahlia pictures. And I just love them, sorry.
Cool. I was wondering actually where you got the artwork. I thought it was really neat.
My dad, he's so great.
Okay, Julie, so we do have a few questions that have been in that we are, that are still open. So one is, how many weeks in advance of being able to put them in the ground would you start, sorry, my thing keeps moving around.
No, that's okay.
Would you start the tubers indoors? And would you also use heating pads?
Using the heating pads. It depends on where you're starting them indoors. But I would say that if you start them the beginning of April, you'll have a really good head start in the middle of May to plant them. It really depends on when you're planning on planting them. I start mine, these usually go in the middle of March, I would say, for me. I get them going the middle of March, and then I have a really good solid plant by the time I plant them the May 1st. So
okay,
maybe 6 weeks.
Okay, perfect. We do have folks asking if you can discuss storing and dividing the tubers. So I'm not sure if you want to go over that briefly or how you want to cover that topic.
I don't know if I have pictures. When it comes to storing and dividing, it's kind of like that's my granddaughter. This is Dahlia Forms. I'm going to go through here and I'll say these are different types of dahlias, different forms of dahlias. At the end, I have some that I can talk about. Sorry, I should have probably just showed you guys all these. They're just all these different types of dahlias, different forms. Anemones are amazing. Dahlias come in every color and every form, and it's a lot of fun. It really, really is. Let me get, so back to this was the stalk. This was a clump of tubers. So like if you were gonna pull this clump of tubers out of the ground, you wanna do it after your first major frost, when all of the dahlias blacken. I usually cut them back and then I wait about a week, only because usually that's what time it ends up happening. And then I go out and I dig them up, and then I clean them with just very soft water because I don't want to break any of the eyes that might be showing. So I clean them up really well. And for me, I divide and I store them. So I divide them, I take them up in the fall, I divide them in the fall, and I store them over the winter. So something like this, a dahlia tuber like this, you can easily take the tubers off of this old stalk and add an eye, make sure there's an eye attached to each one of those. And you just need to make sure that the necks are very solid and they're strong. They're not broken, they're not weak. So when you're digging them up out of the ground, you want to take your shovel and go all the way around the whole entire clump. And you want to go out quite a bit. You probably at least 18 inches, I would say, at least 12 inches, 18 inches out all the way around the dahlia plant, and get really deep down, because you would be surprised how many tubers will grow over just a short amount of time over the summer. So if you pull this whole entire stalk out, if you yank on it, if you don't have a really good grasp and you don't cut all the roots underneath it off, you could break some of these necks. So you want to be really careful, and you want to dig deep and dig under and get it out without pulling on all of the necks. So once you get it up out of the ground, then you want to rinse it off really well. And then you have a choice. You can divide it then, or you can wait. Some people store them over the winter just the way they are. I myself can't do that. I have to cut them and divide them individually, or at least into clumps. If it's a huge clump, I can divide it into 4 and have 4 clumps, and then I can store it. And that works out really well also.
And what's the ideal storage situation for dahlias?
They need to be stored in something that is between 40 and 50 degrees. Probably better to be closer to the 40 mark than the 50 mark. And I store my tubers in vermiculite. I feel for myself that it keeps them from getting too moist. The vermiculite takes the, where I live, it's very humid. So it helps to combat the humidity, because I don't want these tubers to be sitting in water, moisture for 2 months, because they'll be rot. And when I go back in the fall, I check them also every month. I literally check every tuber every month and pull out the ones that aren't good, take care of the ones that are, and add more vermiculite if I need to. But back to, once you've cleaned them, you want to label them somehow. Either you want to keep them all, like say you have, like Alan's Arctic fox, this guy right here. I just pulled him out of the ground. He's this big clump. And now I'm going to take, and I'm going to divide all of my tubers. I'm going to mark him somehow. Either I'm going to put him in a bag only with tubers of Alan's Arctic fox, or I'm going to mark him, AF, so that way I know what tuber that is. There's different pins and things you can use for marking them. I use a Sharpie that's a red ink. It's an industrial Sharpie that I get the only place I can find it is on Amazon. So I get those pins, and I have dozens and dozens of them, because I have dozens and dozens of tubers. But I mark each tuber, and I let them set. So I will let them set and dry completely, like at least 2 days for the most part. I let them dry. And then I put them in the vermiculite, and I store them in bins that my husband poked holes around the tops of the lids. And then I can store them on top of each other, and they get airflow in. They're in the vermiculite. They're dried before they get there. And then I'm able to check on them, and I pull out anything that doesn't do well. And what's nice about the vermiculite is that if a tuber doesn't do well, it's not necessarily going to poison all the rest of the tubers. It keeps that separate enough so that way it's able to do, it's able to, I can pull the bad one out, and the rest of them can stay in there. And so
okay, I do have, sorry to cut you off. I do have several people asking if it's necessary, absolutely, in the Pacific Northwest to pull your dahlias.
No, it depends on where you live. If your ground freezes, you need to pull your dahlias.
Okay.
If your ground does not freeze, then you do not need to, because that's really what it comes down to. If your ground freezes, they can't handle that, because as soon as they're going to freeze under the ground, and then they're going to thaw out, and they're going to become mush. So if you live in an area where you can cut your dahlias back, what I would suggest, and my mother lives in this type of scenario exactly. We cut the tubers back. We cut the clumps back, get rid of all the green stuff, and then I use I put dirt down first, or I put some kind of most of the time I just put dirt down, and then I take a black between 4 and 6 mil plastic, really thick plastic, and I take a big I'll cut a piece of it, put it on top of the pump, And then I put more dirt or whatever I have, like bark chips or something. And then leaves in, but leaves tend to blow away. So I prefer to use something that's really like bark chips. And I cover them up, and I'll put a good foot, at least 10 inches of really very, bark on top of it. And that insulates them. So in the spring, usually about the middle of March, well, it depends on when the frost is. Right now we're still frosting. So I would say when you know for sure that your frost is over, go and take all the bark off, take the plastic off, let them breathe. And then you'll notice that they're already growing. They're already coming out of the ground. So it depends on where you live, what your temperature is, of whether you need to pull them out or not. But you have to also remember that, people hate hearing this, dahlias are annuals. You don't spend a lot of money on these annuals. They are technically annuals. And if we want to keep them strong, then that's up to us. We have to protect them and baby them and love them. And whether we pull them out of the ground or we leave them in the ground, it just depends on how much effort we want to put into it. But,
perfect. Thank you for that. So I do have more questions, but I want to give you an opportunity to share if you have more of your presentation that you'd like to go over, or how do you want to proceed?
All I had left was going over the dividing, and so it's up to what you want to listen to.
I do have lots more questions.
That works for me. I can answer questions, and if I can't answer them, I promise you, if I'm not able to answer a question, please let them know, and then they can get back to me, and I will find an answer, because I have a lot of great people that are amazing dahlia growers, and I can give them questions and they will give me answers. So I can give you a good answer later if I can't answer you today. Does that make sense?
Perfect. So I'm kind of going through these. A lot of folks are asking about propagating from tubers versus, cuttings or seed. And so if maybe you can talk a little bit about all of those methods.
This little guy here is what we call a pot tuber. So this was actually, it was one tuber that was put in here, and then it grew, and it was only allowed to live in this pot. And so it grew last year to become a big plant. And now then in the fall, we cut it down, we cut it all the way back, and I stored it in here over the winter. Actually, Mark stored it over here in the winter, and I got it from him. But so then in the spring, I wanted to take cuttings. So I put this guy on some heat, and that's where you guys are talking about the heat pads and getting these guys woke up. So I put them on, I get heat pads. I actually have like 4-foot long heat pads that I use. And I put these guys on heat pads when they're, I don't have one that's not already woke up, but so it would just be I wish I did. Geez, Jules. Usually I have all kinds of them that aren't woke up, but everybody's woke up now. So then you'll start seeing that they'll have eyes coming up. And when the eyes start coming up, you can choose to take a cutting off of it.
Julie, if you want to stop sharing your screen, we could see you a little bit better.
Oh,
there we go.
I'm sorry.
No, you're fine.
So if you want to take a cutting on this, then that's how you would do it. You wait until it gets a good set of leaves like this, and then you would take your razor blade, which I don't have either. I wasn't planning on doing this, I'm sorry. And you would cut right above the tuber. You don't want to cut the tuber because you want this to continue to grow again. So you cut it right above the tuber, and then depending on these lower leaves, you would take them off. And I use a rooting hormone that I don't have either, but I use a rooting hormone, and I just spritz some water on it, and I dip it in the rooting hormone, and then I would put it in Oasis. Hold on 1 second, I can show you that part of it. Whoop, just like get it on. So these guys are cuttings I took off of a tuber or a pot tuber. Depends on whichever. Some of them are directly off of a tuber. Some of them are off of a pot tuber. And then I take that and I put it in Oasis. I like Oasis. Other people use different mediums. And then usually it takes 10 to 14 days, and you'll notice that they will start to, I don't know if you can see that. Can you see the little, can you guys see that?
Yep, we can see it.
There you go. See, now you know. That's some beautiful roots growing on this little guy. And then I would take him and I would plant him in, well, so like this. This would be from a cutting off of another tuber that I had. And then this guy is going to grow, and he's going to look just like his mama did. And you would not know the difference that this was a cutting as opposed to a tuber, except when it comes time for in the fall. In the fall, when you're pulling up these guys, the mama or the original tuber is going to have a whole bunch of tubers, which is great. The cutting's going to have maybe half that amount of tubers. And then there's another thing called leaf cuttings, which I'm not going to go into at all because that's Ted Kennedy's thing. So, and those create just a small amount of tubers. But and this guy was from a Dahlia seed. And he looks just as good as the rest of them, but he doesn't have a tuber inside. He literally was grown just from a seed that I got from the Portland Dahlia Society, from Linda, and bless her heart, she gave me a whole bunch of seeds this year because I lost a lot of mine. So I was able to grow some of her seeds. And then that one, this is another cutting. So seeds, cuttings, this is another.
And Julie, I do have a lot of other questions coming in.
Yes. Yes, I'm listening.
If you can discuss common insects and your control of them, I think people might appreciate that. We touched a little bit on powdery mildew and diseases, but insects specifically in the greenhouse and outside of the greenhouse would be helpful.
Well, my biggest insect issue that I have, especially in the beginning in the spring, is slugs and snails. They're horrid. And they love to eat all of your little baby seedlings when they're coming in. They love to eat all the little green, and they will kill your tuber, and then you have nothing, and it's not nice. So I use Sluggo. I'm not a big fan of using stuff, but that's the only thing I've found that I can use, and I have so many dahlias, I have to. If I was able to, if I had a smaller garden, I might try doing the trapping with the beer and with, whatever else other people use. But my size garden, I have to stick with the Sluggo, and it doesn't harm anybody or anything. So I use Sluggo for the slugs and the snails. Earwigs are yuck. I hate them. So that's another one. I use the Sluggo Plus, but I use that later on in the summer when the earwigs start really getting rampant. Usually July, August, September, they're really bad. So I'll use a Sluggo Plus at that time. I really try to keep everything clean underneath my plants. When my plants get to, a good 4 feet, 3 to 4 feet, maybe not full grown, but almost, I go under and I cut and I clean the bottom, at least 8 inches of leaves off. I take all the stems off the bottom of all my plants. So that way the bottom is air. There's a lot of airflow. There's not going to, and a lot of space for bugs to crawl back into. I'm trying to think. I know, spider mites and things like that. And I use de-earth for most any other type of issue I have. I do use neem oil. I like neem oil. I'll spray that on my plants, around my plants. I'll do the insect cleaning kind of things too. But
okay, thank you. Yeah, no, I think those are good suggestions. Yeah. And a few other folks were asking about gall on the tubers, and how to recognize that and what to do. So if you might.
I don't have any pictures of that right now, but I really suggest go on Facebook, and I'm not a big social media person, but if you go on Facebook to the Dahlias the Dahlias site on Facebook, there's a lot of excellent information on all the time, on leaf gall, on all the galls. And then they have actual pictures of what it looks like. And, you know, you have to be careful of who you buy your tubers from. You don't want to buy them from places that don't live in this country, kind of thing. You don't know where they're coming from. You just need to be really careful about that. And unfortunately, not everybody's going to know. And that's it just sucks. But if you do notice that you have an issue in the fall when you're pulling up your tubers, don't keep it. Get rid of it. Throw it away in the garbage. Don't put it in your compost bin. Just get rid of it. But take pictures of it. Verify that that's what it is. Check. Go on social media. Go to the Portland Dahlia Society. We have great resources for determining whether or not there's different types of viruses. Linda Taylor is amazing when it comes to the viruses and how to determine different viruses. She has all these websites, things on it. Washington State's doing a lot of information on the viruses for the dahlias. It's more about taking pictures of what you have if you have questions about things, and going to where the answers could be, which is most likely going to be American Dahlia Society, any of the other Dahlia societies, or the actual OSU Extension Services. That's
okay. Awesome.
Answers.
Yeah, I think that's a great suggestion. A couple of folks are asking if they have like shriveled tubers. Can you save them, or is there any way to...
It depends. Some of them I just have to get rid of, and that's sad. You can put them in some water and see if that will help plump them up. Sometimes just putting them in some moist soil might plump them up enough. Sometimes some tubers just tend to do that, and it doesn't mean that they're not going to grow. They might grow just fine. You might get a beautiful eyes off of it. So don't get rid of them unless you know for positive. So put them in some good soil, moistened soil. Get them in an area where they can grow, and see what happens. That's your best bet for anything. Hey, try it. It's not going to hurt. So give it a try. You'd be surprised.
Okay, awesome. So we only have a couple of minutes left here. I don't know if there's any parting, words that you want to share for...
Well, I would like to say that I'm a member of the Portland Dahlia Society, but I've also been members of lots of Dahlia societies, and I love all of them, and you gain a lot of information. And we always usually have wonderful spring sales. So wherever you go, if you are living in Minnesota, find your nearest Dahlia Society. You're going to find wonderful people to contact with, information, great sales. You're going to learn a lot. We have in 2023, the National Dahlia Show will be in Portland, and it's going to be at the Red Lion, and it's going to be huge. Internationally, people coming from everywhere to show their dahlias. So keep that on your calendar. If you are interested in finding out more about any type of how to find dahlias, Dahlia Addict is the best place to find dahlias. Now it's kind of late, but you can still find some. Of course, your Dahlia societies is a great way. Avoid some of those places that are selling dahlias that are from other places. That's kind of scary. Try to stay local. Local is good. And enjoy your dahlias. Oh my gosh, it's going to be beautiful this year. I can't wait.
I know we had several folks that really wanted to see more pictures of dahlias, but we only had an hour, so we did have to kind of cram a lot of information in. I don't know if you have some pretty ones you could throw up real quick while I
could. Can I go back to that thing I was just on?
Yes.
Okay, let's do that. I have some then. You can always go to my website too, juliesdahlias.com. I got lots of dahlias on there you can look at. If you want pictures, that is. Okay, let's see where we're at.
And while she's pulling that up, folks, I'm just gonna
So this is Elizabeth Jane. It's a novelty open center. It's a different type of dahlia than you're usually going to find, but these are show dahlias that I'm showing here. This is one of my favorites. It's Valley Porcupine. This dahlia is literally 2.5 inches in diameter. It's an amazing little sprat of color that just blows out. It's amazing. This is what we call a stellar. This is Bloomquist Pumpkin. It's a gorgeous dahlia. It's on about a 4-foot plant. And this one wins big in the show. Big in the show. This is a water lily. This is Holly Hill Black Widow. This is from our very famous Ted Kennedy, the Kennedys here in Oregon City. He's made an amazing amount of dahlias, and this is one of them. This little guy is called Kite Runner. And unfortunately, I think I just lost my last one. So it makes me very sad, but it was beautiful. This is Intact Chili. This is an orchid dahlia. It's different than the orchid. This orchid has another area of little petaloids around it that it's used for its collar. And this is an orchid again. This is a collarette. This is Angel Rowan. This collarette is one of the biggest collarettes on the market right now. Gorgeous dahlia. And this is, like I said, anemone, Alpine Fury. This one has a row of petaloids around a big tubular this big dome. It's very fun. These are Elvira. These are tiny little guys that are less than 2 inches in diameter, and they're a little peony, amazing little dahlias. And this is Eclipse. This is a single. This is kind of like what the history of dahlias started out with, but just not the pretty colors. And this is a mignon single. So this little guy is less than 2 inches, and its plant is about 2.5 feet tall. These are great for border dahlias. This is a palm. It's less than 2 inches, also in diameter. The plant itself could be 4 feet tall, though. It's huge and full of these beautiful orange palms. This little guy is a miniature ball. So this is a little bit bigger in size than the palm, and it's orange, and it's actually a lighter color orange. Very, very pretty dahlia, using bases and all kinds of stuff. This is Cornell Bronze, which is one of the big ones on the market nowadays. This is a great one for weddings and for different kind of bouquets. This is Sandia Comanche. This one was created in Washington. This is a beautiful dahlia. And this is another Holly Hill Cotton Candy. This is an incurved cactus. So it kind of incurves back on itself, and it makes an amazing, this is a big one too. So this guy is like 6 to 8 inches. I think he's about 7 inches. This is Woodland's Wild Thing. This is a semi-cactus, or some people say, some people say it's an ID. They kind of fight over it, but beautiful dahlia. It's about 4-foot plant. These guys are a straight cactus. And so you have Intact Patricia and Holly Hill Starburst. These are beautiful dahlias, and they just grow, and they are so much fun. This is an incurved cactus. This is informal decorative, I'm sorry. It's April Dawn. And this is Ketchup and Mustard. Here's your formal decorative. That is so much fun. This guy is literally 9 inches in diameter, sometimes 10. He's huge. And that was my daughter, my granddaughter again.
Oh,
well, you ready?
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing some pretty pictures. I know folks always like to see that, and we would love to just continue on, but it is a little past 4, so thanks folks for staying on a little late. And thank you so much, Julie, for your presentation.
Oh, thank you so much. This was great.
I know that we had a lot of questions we couldn't get to, and with over 1,000 folks attending, that's a little difficult. So make sure to reach out to your local Dahlia Society or ask Extension or your Extension office for further questions.
Definitely.
We'll be sending out an evaluation link to those of you who did attend. And if you are a Master Gardener, you can receive continuing education credit for today's session. So our next webinar in this series will be Water-Wise Gardening on April 11th at 3 p.m. And the whole schedule for this series will be on our Growing Oregon Gardeners Level Up website, which we will throw in the Q&A, and we hope to see you at a future session. We will have Julie's presentation as well as her resources uploaded to the website as well. So if you want to go through and see some of these slides a little closely, we can do that. So thanks again, Julie. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you everybody for attending.
Bye guys.